So thank you very much. This is fantastic. It's fantastic to be here, and you are gorgeous, guys. This is the first time for me. I basically attended all the Android till now in 2 years, since when I first came in London. And this is the first time for me this side, and I have to say that is pretty awesome. So a lot of feelings, fear mostly, but yeah. So this is the start of my talk about fantastic fragments and how to test them. The rise of the constructor. Why the rise of the constructor? We will see that later. I don't want to spoil. No spoilers. So who am I? I am Alex Facciorusso. I work as a senior Android developer at Karmarama, part of Accenture Interactive. And I love to work with many different technologies and different paradigms, like learning new libraries and everything like that. So I worked with Flutter and iOS, and yes, I did iOS as well. So let's start by really a brief introduction about what is AndroidX, because AndroidX is a bit the linchpin of everything we are talking today. So AndroidX, as many of us, or all of us would know, is a major improvement over the Android support library. So what mainly does is backporting new functionalities that are meant to work with the new Android versions in order that we can use it with older Android versions and so on. AndroidX is part of Jetpack, that is a set of libraries made from Google, of course, for helping us developers to have less boilerplate code and to build better apps, hashtag. So, yeah. The first thing I want to talk to you about is, of course, fragment testing. So till now, fragment testing has been fragmented. Sorry for the pun. But so we have different ways of testing a fragment. The first one is, of course, creating a test activity containing only that fragment. What that means that you have to create like a dummy activity and then create methods inside of it in order to inject a fragment inside of it. And then, of course, you can't open your Android. You can't just open an activity. You have to insert it in a manifest file. So if we don't want to insert it in the main manifest file, we have to create a debug manifest file that will be merged with our main one. So it's a lot of boilerplate stuff. Let's not talk about if you have like Dagger, if you use Dagger for injection. So you have also to configure the mock injection with Dagger, injecting mock modules inside the activity, and then the activity will inject them inside our fragment. So it's a lot of boilerplate code. Another way of testing fragments is that was isolation. This is not isolation. This is not isolation testing. We are just testing the fragment as part of a flow. So we start an activity. We start the activity that could be, for example, the nearest one to that fragment. Sorry, the word, but like allow me to say that. And basically, you just click, you just perform actions in the test till you arrive to the fragment you want to test. Again, that's not the best way of testing, but we can do that as well. So just to know, how many of us guys, we use fragment isolation testing in our applications? So, okay, that's no, okay. I wasn't expecting no one, but that's nice. So why is that important? Because if you can just isolate the fragment and test just the UI for that particular fragment, you can, it's basically you're doing a unit testing for UI. So it's a very quick way and like it's a nice way to check the health of your app. So what Google is doing is creating a library for us that will help us doing the same thing, so create an activity containing all the fragment, but this time we don't have to create the activity itself, so everything is managed by Google. This library is called Fragment Scenario. It's not a library, it's a part of the AndroidX testing library. So Fragment Scenario will do exactly what I told you earlier. So we'll launch a fragment inside a container that is an empty activity, is a dummy activity. Let's see, so I don't know, yeah. So let's see, launch fragment in container, we have just a function. Let's see, like, yeah. So this is a function, is a KTX function, so is a Kotlin, sorry, not generic, is a Kotlin public function that will that takes an argument as a template argument, takes a reified parameter. For who's not Kotlin talker, a reified parameter is basically as in Java or in Kotlin itself when we pass to the as a parameter of the function a colon class.java. So in this case, it's more or less like if we are doing launch fragment in container, and then inside the parentheses we are passing dashboard fragment colon class.java. So it's a fancy way of passing types to a function, basically, to use templates functions. So how to use it is just we create a test and we launch the fragment into container. I captured scenario, that is the fragment scenario, just in case we want to use some fancy functions we have in scenario. Because scenario will allow us to do things like transitioning the fragment between a lifecycle state to another. So, for example, if I want to test the fragment, when the fragment is paused, I can just say, please, scenario, please move this fragment to paused state. So I can pass the lifecycle state. And so you can understand that in this way we can just test if things are working in the right way. I leave you that to your imagination of what we can do with this. And then after that, the fragment is launched inside an activity, and then you can use just espresso, so as we would do normally. The fragment factory. So the old way of building a fragment, kind of the old way, was to create a static function, a static method in Java, and then a function in Kotlin, where you just create a fragment, because of course a fragment we know that should have just one parameter-less constructor, and then create the fragment passing arguments, passing things that we want to pass the fragment. But from now, the fragment factory, yeah. Now the fragment factory will take the responsibility of creating fragments for us. So we'll use Java introspection dark magic, and like basically gets class loader, and that is a Java introspection thing, and then the class name of the fragment that we want to create. So let's imagine what we have a fragment called myVoldy fragment, and that fragment will the class name of that fragment will be passed to class name, of course. How this come really handy is when, for example, we have Dagger2 that is injecting our fragments. Yeah, we have a fragment that has been injected by Dagger2. And we create this injecting fragment factory that is using a multi-binding, a Dagger2 multi-binding. So if you have used it before, view model factory, this is exactly the same. So it's the same concept applied to fragments. And this is the kind of short code for letting Dagger inject the creators for those fragments, providers for those fragments. So there's an implicit thing in this, and is that now fragments, well, I won't spoil it, I will show you. So this is the way we used to create our fragments usually. So we have myVoldy fragment, and it's a Dagger fragment, and it gets injected of a wand, okay? That's Dagger2 will, when the fragment will be created, will just inject our wand using the field. And of course, we have to keep this field public because otherwise Dagger can't just access it. So now, and this is the catch thing, with fragment factory, we can have finally a constructor in our fragment. and that is not a parameterless constructor. We can have a proper constructor. So finally, our wand will be private and will just be read-only. So no one will touch that thing, okay? And this is very, very handy because, of course, you are not anymore breaking any encapsulation logic. And, of course, Fragment is the AndroidX one. How to use this? So we can use Fragment scenario again. We create a test, and we launch the fragmenting container. This time, we're not using a refined parameter in Kotlin, but we are passing a function that will create our fragment. We can call it the fragment factory, but it's not really. It's just a block that returns our fragment. So, and then what we are doing here is just passing mock wand to the fragment. So we have a mock created via mock-k or mockito or whatever, and we are passing that to the fragment as it is a class, a normal class, as it should be. Now finally it is, and then we can do stuff with Espresso, so as usual. In the case we are using a test view model, we are using a view model in our fragment, as we probably do. We know that in that case the fragment will need a view model factory for creating the view model. So now we can just pass that view model factory. Instead of using field injection, we can do constructor injection and pass that view model factory in the constructor of the fragment. And then we are just creating our view model by using our view model's delegate property in Kotlin, because we are doing that, aren't we? And we are not passing directly the view model, because that would be very, very bad. And for testing that, we are just, again, creating a test, launching the fragmenting container, and inside of the block, we are passing a test view model factory. So what's test view model factory? So that's a function, of course, that will return something. What does it return is just a view model factory, of course, that will just return our view model, the view model that we will pass. That in that case would be a mock one. So you can imagine, again, a mockito or mock-k annotation in the mock view model that will mock that object, and then we pass it to the fragment. So now it's becoming more like unit tests. It's nothing more than unit tests, apart from the Espresso part, of course. Now, just let's take a pause. Like looking at this image, I couldn't really keep myself putting this very low-res picture of that film. Is for who's a HP fan? That's the Durmstrang ship that is selling to Durmstrang again. So, navigating towards new horizons. What I mean by that. So, you know, managing navigation in fragments has always been a problem, because there's a lot of things associated with that. We need to manage fragments, transactions, arguments, routes, box stack, and so on and so on. You will say you wrote there, so lifecycle, boilerplate code. And so when you had to do that manually, that was a bit of a problem. You could mistake. We are developers. We mistake. Everyone mistakes. But thank you to Google this time, Google repaired these problems by giving us this tool that is called navigation component. I'm pretty sure. Now, hands up who is using navigation component. Okay. This time it's no one. Fortunately, that's good. That's good. So navigation components has one of the biggest adoption ratio of all the AndroidX libraries. So sorry, the Jetpack libraries, because it's pretty neat and it's pretty easy to use as well. So how to use navigation component? You have the XML navigation file, and then it will spit out the routes and destinations. Then if you use the SafeArgs plugin, that is something I have in my heart, because the SafeArgs plugin will help you to, again, to mistake less, because I did so many mistakes, like forgetting arguments and things, and that will result, you know in what that will result. And from the SafeArc plugin. The SafeArc plugin takes those XML files and creates static helpers to help us. This is what an XML navigation file is. So we have a fragment that is called the Voldy fragment. Probably I can do just that. Ooh, works. And then we have the action that is called action go find Harry, and the destination is the Harry fragment. And then, of course, we have the Harry fragment that is taking as argument a Horcrux that is a particular, is a custom data type. That could be, for example, an enum or things like that. Now, how to use it? We use find out controller that is part of the Kotlin KTX, that is Kotlin extension, part of the navigation library, navigation component. And we find the nav controller associated with a fragment. How to associate a nav controller to a fragment, or how to associate a fragment with a nav controller to an activity, I will leave that to, as an exercise for you to go on the website, because that would be extra stuff that we don't want to cover in this moment. What I want to give you is a base on what are the news in the AndroidX library. So then we have a navigate method inside of the nav controller that, of course, passing the route that we want to take with our ship, with our fragment, will follow that route and go to a destination. So what if the final destination that is the Harry fragment takes an argument? In that case, we can use bundle. We can pass a bundle and, of course, give a key of that for that bundle and pass the argument that we want to pass. Probably that will be a serializable or a parsable, or probably one of those two. Bundle off is again part of the Kotlin, the KTX extension for Android. So it allows us to pass a pair because the two operator is a Kotlin operator that creates a pair with the first element being the first and the second one, of course, being the second. So bundle off will just takes a list, or a varag, I don't remember, no, a varag for sure, of pairs, and generates a bundle for us. So we are just passing a bundle. What if, question for you, what if we forget to set that, and the second fragment wants something, wants an argument? What will happen? Anyone? So if we forget to put something in the bundle when the second fragment wants that thing, sorry? Not compile error. I wish that would be a compile error. There will be, unfortunately, a runtime error and null pointer exception that will explode. So the app will just explode. So you can understand how something that helps us to avoid that blowing explosion helps us. So with SafeArcs will take the XML, will go analyze all the routes we have and analyze all the destinations and generate static functions. I want to see methods, but it's not Kotlin way, it's functions. The action go find Harry is a method now that takes Horcrux, that takes a Horcrux as a parameter. So we can't mistake anymore. We can't just have a null pointer exception anymore unless we do a mistake inside the second fragment, inside the destination fragment, and we will see it right now. This is the second fragment. Actually, the name is wrong. That should be my Harry fragment, but it's fine. We are getting the arguments, as every one of us do, probably every day. We are getting the arguments, and we are getting a parsable of type Horcrux, and we are passing the key. Okay? What are the points of error, of possible error here? You can mistake the key. You can misspell the key. Unless you create, of course, a static, a constant of that key and things like that. You can be, this key can be nullable, because that would be the argument could be nullable, and in that case, blow. And so there's a lot of possible scenarios that this could fail. Now, save args again, we have the method avada kedavra, and where the view model, where we actually have now the args that is using a navargs delegate property with Kotlin that will take the arguments for us and will create a class called fragment args, will just encapsulate all the possible argument we are sending to that fragment inside that class. This class is automatically generated. It's like there's CodeGen, and it's called like the fragment plus args at the end, so you can't mistake. Inside the class, that's not just a data class, more or less. And that data class will contain all our args, so we can't mistake. And it's possible that you have even optional arguments that will be nullable, and that will be generated as a nullable property of the args property, of the args class, instance of that class. So if we, for example, Horcrux could be nullable, we will have Horcrux that will be nullable, as a field will be nullable, and then we need to use the question mark in order to access it. So you can't anymore, again, we can't anymore mistake with like forgetting stuff and mistaking stuff. So this is just a last minute thing I added. For tabs and swipe-based navigation, Google says that shall not navigation component be used against it. So if you have a tab, if you have two tabs or more tabs, and you want to navigate between the two fragments, please don't use the navigation component, because like Google says, the navigation component has been made mostly for managing backstack and things that affect backstack. Since switching tabs doesn't affect it, so please continue using ViewPager. Or now we have also ViewPager 2 that I literally discovered yesterday. And then we can just use ViewPager 2. You can just search it on Google, and there's all the documentation, the Android SDK. Now, together, navigation component, fragment factory, and fragment scenario will fight against fragment testing. Sorry for, I put in this too much time. Yeah, I get lost in this stuff. And yeah. So how to test them? This is a recap, more or less, of what we just talked about. We have a test function that is, of course, could be an Android instrumentation test, or it could be also a Firebase test. We launch the fragment in a container again. We pass the fragment. We pass a block that creates our fragment. We pass our mocked view model factory, and that creates our fragment, launches our fragment, and with the mocked dependencies. And then here we are doing something so we are using fragment scenario in order to to call functions in the fragment in the same thread of the fragment, because Espresso, the instrumentation tests are run in a different thread than the UI. So this on fragment allows us to run on the right thread and to do stuff. And we are setting the navigation ViewNav controller to be a mock one. So the whole navigation, the whole controller that basically controls the navigation has been mocked by us, by Mock-K or Mockito again, and is passed to our fragment, is set to our fragment. What that means is that when we use anything related to navigation, the navigation component, all those methods will be called on our mocked nav controller. So if I want, for example, to check that after a click, a fragment will navigate to a new fragment, or for example, after the view model give a signal or an event to the fragment actually navigates to the new, to the other fragment. I can just verify the mock ViewNav controller if navigate with the right action is called. And that's as simple as that. It's literally 10, I don't know how many lines of code. And like is a lot of boilerplate code that we just saved for free, just putting the dependencies from the libraries. And yeah, this is the end. And thank you very much again. Thank you. Oh, is it?